parents separating, unfortunately, things have not worked out. They've decided, this is it. Emotions are still high. The atmosphere is very tense. We know what the parents are experiencing because there's anger there, there's bitterness, there's resentment, there's I'm done, I want out. What emotions are the children experiencing?
Irrespective of age, they all have feelings of loss. They grieve. For some reason, children think they are the reason
that their parents are
the parents' confusion or fight. But the first step is to know that your child is affected. If you have more than one child, each one of them is going to respond a different way. I went to preach in a certain school and I got these two girls. They came and cried. And after that, they said, we are worried about home. Just imagine, how can such a child perform in class? This is where some children are triggered into drugs.
Hello and welcome back to Reality Check. We are thankful that you are back again this week. We have another hopefully exciting conversation, one that will change your perspective, change your mind, and hopefully give you as much information to take better care of your mental health. This channel cares for hearts and minds, and my name is Rachel, always joined by Dr. Eva Satwine, who is the founder of International Center for Mental Health and Family Care. She's also a trained therapist, a life coach, a marriage and parenting coach. Is that it?
Yes,
coach?
parenting coach.
Parenting coach. So if those are areas you need support in, please don't hesitate to make that appointment. Our contacts are always in our description box, and she will look through her very busy schedule to make time for you so you can receive the help you need. Welcome aboard. Today we are going to be talking about divorce, separation, but where children are concerned. Yeah, and we know that usually when couples are separating and they have children, it really complicates matters, and it's important to have as much information as you can or wisdom in how to navigate that situation. How do you communicate what is happening to your children, whether they be 3 years old, 9 years old, 16 years old. And so we felt it pertinent to have this conversation. So welcome aboard and welcome, Dr. Evas.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
So parents separating, unfortunately, things have not worked out. They've decided, this is it. Probably emotions are still high. The atmosphere is very tense. We know what the parents are experiencing because there's anger there, there's bitterness, there's resentment, there's I'm done, I want out. But what emotions are the children experiencing? What are the emotions that they are, going through in this kind of environment? Yeah.
Thank you, Rachel. I think I'll build on the conversation we've had before, where we mentioned that the number one protection unit for a child is their parents' relationship. So these children feed off that relationship. It's so important. And if you recall, when I talked about when parents are happy, then they become happy. They play because they enjoy, they laugh because they feel secure. Yeah. But when the relationship is breaking, now we are talking about divorce and separation, but this has been a process. So probably they are privy to what has been happening. They've followed certain conversations. They've eavesdropped. They have witnessed, but I think we'll also have that conversation about children exposed to violence, both emotional and physical. And so probably they've seen this coming. But what happens in their little minds is they are still hoping that the parents can sort it out, because children have so much trust in parents.
Their parents, yes.
They have so much trust. I've never forgotten these two little boys that were arguing and arguing about their dads and the strength of their dads. And they said, one of them said, for me, my dad can fight with an elephant and put it down.
No pressure.
The other one looked at him and said, between an elephant and a lion, which one is stronger? Then the other one said, the elephant is bigger, is stronger, but then the lion is more fierce.
Yes.
So he said, yes, for me, my father can hold and kill a lion. So that's what happens with children. They have so much faith in us. They know that, okay, you don't just kill a lion, but you can actually also sort out issues. So they know, they are still hoping. So depending on how the process has been, they'll keep checking in. And as I mentioned earlier, they most of the time they check with moms. Now, if they are older children, they withdraw. They just get frustrated and then they withdraw. So I'm answering your question, what emotions do they process? So if they are older children, they will feel frustrated and they just
withdraw.
But irrespective of age, they all have feelings of loss. They grieve. They grieve a good relationship, a good family environment. They also have anxiety. They have extreme feelings of anxiety. Now, the parents who are involved in this, they are there's anxiety already. But then children, every other day, they are waking up to a feeling of what next. It's, and I think people who have gone through this or who are experiencing it, they can resonate, because children will keep coming, is everything okay? Sometimes they ask, sometimes they do. If they are still young, they ask, because their innocent hearts just push them to, check in on that. So anxiety, they can feel depressed. Because if the process is, every other time you wake up to helplessness, anxiety, stress, then they are likely to plunge into a state of hopelessness. So that's what we call depression. I already talked about frustration. And they also have anger. They get so angry because when they realize their parents cannot sort whatever is happening, they get so angry, very angry. There is also, interestingly, children feel ashamed. They nurture feelings of shame because especially when they are dealing with their peers, they get ashamed that they have a family that cannot, compare to others. And again, parents who have experienced this, you will probably you've had these children come and say, people, I'm ashamed, they are laughing at me, especially when the process is finalized and they've broken, they get so ashamed. They feel,
I'm not like
other kids. Other people have better things, so shame upon me. But the major feeling is guilt. And I think
that's so interesting.
It's very interesting because children feel guilty, and some of them think their parents separating is because of them.
Yes.
Now, parents again have had these children are saying it's because of me, and of course, parents go to children and say, "We still love you. It's not because of you." And for some reason, children think they are the reason
that their parents are
the parents' confusion or fights or whatever it is. So it's such a big, it's just an array of negative emotions that definitely affect their mental health.
And that's a lot for a child. I mean, think about a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old carrying the weight.
It's so much weight for them to carry. It's unbelievably heavy. It's too much.
Which then begs the question, how do parents support their children? And I know that in situations like these, parents strive, there are those who are very vigilant in protecting their children. And then there are those who maybe just dismiss, he's a 3-year-old, he's a 4-year-old, I don't think he notices anything or knows what's going on. And I'd want you to speak to both those kinds of parents, those who feel like their child doesn't know. They're still young. What do they know about separation? And they'll be fine. But in these situations, you'll find parents becoming very protective of their children. But I want you to speak about what protection looks like. How do you help your child, for example, to overcome guilt, How do you break the news to them that they are, that this is what we are going through, and then help them navigate those emotions?
Yes, so there, the vigilance. Of course, we have to consider that parents are struggling. So in that situation, parents, especially those that are sensitive and vigilant and are concerned about the welfare of the children. But even then, parents are struggling. They are struggling
Themselves,
person.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they are struggling, whatever the situation is. Maybe they've had this challenge that has been on for a long time, and they are exhausted. They are really, really exhausted. So by that time, emotionally, and of course emotionally and physically, but of course emotionally, because as I've said before, we are sustained from the strength within. And so when you get exhausted, when you have cried, those that are vigilant, sometimes they engage children and give them. So they are the positive vigilance and the negative vigilance.
One, yes.
Let me talk about what should I start with? The positive.
The positive, yes.
The positive vigilance is, most importantly, they are aware of what children are going through.
Yeah.
Acknowledging that this has an effect on children. And not taking comfort in denial, because most of them think, they don't know.
Child.
But the first step is to know that your child is affected. And that's why I started with this. When we are happy, when parents are laughing, when they have a good relationship, you see children are okay.
Are happy.
But the moment there is tension, then they become hyper-vigilant, as I said. They're like, what's going on? Is everything okay? And they are checking. But now, when a parent is aware that this child actually is not young, they know.
Yes.
And whatever age, by the way, we are talking 4-year-olds, but even the younger one, a little one, maybe people have noticed that even a little baby, couple of months or a year, when parents are fighting, this child is going to cry more.
Yes.
They're going to fall sick.
More agitated.
They're going to be more agitated. Yeah. So many things are going to happen. So there is a way, I can never overemphasize the fact that our children's health lives off
ours as well.
Ours as well. And it doesn't have to be physical. It is just emotional, invisible. So that is important. Now, so it's important to acknowledge that children are affected. Now, what do they need? You may not just put so much weight on them with the issues that you're dealing with, but making sure that you're giving them assurance and reassurance. I can hear someone say, so you want me to be fake? You want me? When we are aware, then we have to make sure that we operate a certain way. I'm avoiding acting, but we operate a certain way. There are certain things we protect children from. There are conversations you're going to protect. You're going to be calmer. You're going to be intentionally regulated and calm, knowing that children are going to be affected, right? So that is even before it happens in the process. But even when it has happened, give them assurance. Talk more. Talk more. Speak into their souls, because they need assurance and reassurance. Because remember, their world has crumbled because the parents' relationship protects children, gives 80% protection. It gives, it's a lifeline for the children.
Bedrock.
It's a bedrock. It anchors them. So we need vigilance. Be aware that it is affecting them, right? And assure them. And tell them, just keep telling them it will be okay. It will be okay. They just need to hear that. And even when you haven't given them details. Then there is, I talked about the negative, but then the positive is the reassuring. Then the parents who assume children don't know.
They don't know.
They know. They know, irrespective of age.
Their age, yeah.
Yeah. But of course, when they are older, they know. The little children, they will check in, they realize there's something wrong, but they get easily distracted. So they go, they play, you take them for birthday. But there is something that
There's
keeps
an awareness
there. There's an
they
awareness
have,
they
yeah.
keep processing. There's that nagging thing. They're like, but then when they come and the people are laughing, it's okay. They are hoping. But when you have older children, they process this together with you, with the parents. So they're not going to be distracted. If you have teenagers, then you need to know that they are just consistently and constantly following the process. They are able to read the non-verbal cues. They are looking, they are seeing sadness. They are able to interpret situations more accurately than the little ones. And so when you have them involved, once again, give them information, but also don't put so much weight on them.
Yeah. So what age group is this? The ones who are like really aware and can process? You're looking at maybe a 7-year-old, 8-year-old?
Preteens, preteens and teens.
And teens.
Yeah, preteens and teens. And when we talk about preteens, we're talking about, 7, 8 to 10,
9,
11 there.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the teenagers. Teenagers,
Wow.
yes.
Wow.
And maybe speaking a little more on the older children, teenagers, they get so disappointed in the parents, and depending on who, because they engage in analyzing issues, they are able to know. They are able to know what happened
based on what they've been
seeing. They know which parent has been unfair to the other. And this is a time when parents are saying, even that you're using children against me, depending on what is involved. But one of the things I really want to emphasize is that when children are living with you, especially older children, they are able to analyze situations. They know for sure. They can still love you, but they know that you're the unfair one. And so this whole thing of it's you who is mobilizing children against me. Don't
be fooled.
Don't be fooled.
Yeah.
These children are
aware.
They are aware. They know.
Yeah.
They know.
I mean, if a 4-year-old, 5-year-old can sense this is not right.
Yes.
Maybe my mom has not been home in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We're turning to a month. Yes, they are going to manifest it differently. Maybe there'll be a lot more crying, a lot more clinginess to the parent that has stayed, withdrawn. Like even 4-year-olds, I believe, would, depending on their personalities, I think that it behooves parents not to think that their children are unaware, and in fact, start to think that they are aware of what's going on and then work at helping them navigate that situation.
Yes, just thinking about a number of cases we've seen, for instance, where children have gone to an afflicted, is that the right word, parent, and they say, can you make a decision and get out of this marriage, right? And so they see because one of the parents is sleeping in a different bedroom. They see what they do. They come at 5, at 4. They know, because children, we don't have to take them through what a good family is supposed to be. They know that parents should be. They have unwritten expectations and guidelines, and so when these are broken, they are able to tell that there's something wrong, and so they are able to go with the parent. Most of the time, they are able to side with the parent who they feel is unfairly treated.
Yes, the victim, in other words.
The victim.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk communication. I think that you've talked about assuring your children and reassuring them, and that really speaks to the words that you're going to say. Children, I believe, first of all, are very curious beings. They're going to ask questions like maybe, why isn't daddy home? Daddy has not been home for the last... Okay, they may not have like the length of time, but they'll say daddy has not been home for a very long time. What is going on? And I know that most parents will default to telling a lie, which is understandable because they're trying to protect the image of their dad, but also protect how much information this child can can take.
in.
And so I think my question is, what is appropriate to say in those times? And maybe if you could give a guideline for like age groups, we've separated them into the little ones, and there's the preteens and teens. How do you explain what is happening? I mean, genuinely, as a parent, I've decided we are separating. How do I then explain that to you? Is there a right time to communicate this information? Can I enlist the support of a therapist? Because maybe I don't have the words. Like what? Talk to a mom or a dad who's going through this kind of scenario.
Yes, so we're talking about the process of separation as well as the separation itself.
Yes.
So I've already mentioned that in the process of separation, as much as possible, protect children from any form of exposure to things they are not going to process in a healthy way.
Fair enough.
Because if for instance, there is violence involved, as I mentioned earlier, please protect them.
Yeah.
I mean, there are certain hard conversations that you're going to have. And it as much as possible, get emotionally regulated. And, this is hard enough for both of you, but just imagine children.
For the kids.
Yeah, so it's very important that parents are able to keep certain conversations away from children. Of course, when people are fighting, sometimes there's not much logic.
That's true.
As they say, there's not so much logic in war.
Yes.
So it's very important for parents to do that and make sure that even the little ones, the older ones. So if fighting smart, decent war, it's hard to achieve, but if we are intentional, we can achieve.
Yeah.
Now, should children, as it were, they will detect that there's something wrong, as I mentioned, give them information they can process something palatable, not heaping certain things on you, or your mom is cheating, or your dad has 10 women, or that's too much
Not
for them.
necessary also.
Communicate things they understand, and say statements like your mom and I, or your dad and I. Rarely men talk about this, but it's very important that you calm down, because this is a situation that requires the highest amount of self-regulation.
I agree.
Very important. That skill comes in handy, because then you don't want to lose many times or to lose more.
Yes.
Losing a relationship is bad enough.
Bad enough. And now your children.
But then your children. And maybe, Rich, I should pause here and remind people that when this foundation of a family is broken, the enemy wants to steal more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, that's why we call on people. The things we do that destroy our relationships. Last time I mentioned, and I said, I want to say it again, we have to know that the devil is aiming at something bigger.
That's true.
That's why I say, okay, get into some of these things, but you have to know that the devil can't give you more than he's interested in taking away from you.
Absolutely.
So, when it comes in, when the enemy comes in like a flood and is trying to cause so much commotion, he's interested in our generations.
Yes.
He's interested in having your children depressed. He's interested in having children disoriented, because when they are disoriented, then, he's celebrating. So we have to know that when we are dealing with this whole situation, yes, okay, so we've said, please don't divorce, don't separate. But should it have to happen, be on your guard that you don't lose more.
Yeah.
Because, yes, the children are hurting enough, but we can be able to salvage something and make sure that you don't lose more. So calm down, make sure, because I think I mentioned it in one of the shows. If a snake enters a house, and goes behind the TV, you come with a big stick, and now you
beat the TV.
You beat the TV.
No.
You can eventually kill the snake, but you've
you'd
also
have
lost the TV as well.
Yes.
You see, that's the thing.
Yeah.
So as much as possible, there are still some skills we can apply.
I agree.
And make sure we don't lose more. The devil doesn't take more. I always share with my clients an experience of real story of a family, an elderly couple that was attacked by thieves.
Oh.
So when they came, the old man got out of follow. Yeah, he heard that they were downstairs, and so he said, "Who are you?" Then they said, "Come and see us." So he moved, the courage of men, which I really admire so much. But he moved down. They said, "Come." So he came, and they got him. And they said, give us this, which he did. Now, the old lady waited from up and now was wondering how they killed him, what's going on. And so at a time when they were running away with whatever load they had taken, the man was going up. But at that point, the wife panicked and said, "There is another set of TV upstairs." Because she was trying to save the house. But they were already
going. Oh, no.
And then, of course, the rest is history. They went up, and you think they picked only the TV? They picked so many other things. So the point I'm making here is, let's not offer an extra TV to the devil at this point, because we can still salvage something.
Yeah.
We can still, in the midst of that, let's be aware that the loss can be much more than we ever thought. Now, if you have more than one child, each one of them is going to respond a different way. Please be mindful. Be mindful. Just remember, once again, remember that your relationship is not just for you. I think I've said it here, Rachel. This relationship is not just between you and Ben.
Yeah, that's true.
The stakes are so high.
They are.
The stakes are so high. So let's try as much as possible. If a separation has to happen, don't lose more. Now, I've forgotten which question I was answering.
You had started answering it. I think you said don't heap a lot of information on the kids that they're not able to process.
Yes, they're not able to process. And as much as possible, try to give it to them in piecemeal, right? Depending on your level of emotional stability. Yeah, so if you're not able to say something, just assure them that you are aware of how they feel and that you're going to have a time when you talk about, and when you promise, keep your promise. Yes. Because they're already frustrated enough, they're already broken. So as much as possible, the secret is acknowledge how they feel.
Yes.
So when you do that, you can come back to them and say, "Sorry guys, I'm still dealing with maybe I'm not yet in a good place for us to talk, but we will talk." That is absolutely important. Important.
Yeah.
So because now you're calming them down.
And I think reassuring them of a sense of safety and security, that mom, depending on the parent who has stayed, dad is here or mom is here, and I'm going to have a time to have a conversation with you, but be rest assured, we love you, I love you, and we are going to be okay, or something along those lines.
100%. But yes, so that's the message that parents always give, and it's very important. But of course, children,
they're not
their question, they keep asking, "What do you mean, love? What do you mean you love us?" Because you see, as I mentioned before, when we manage our relationship in a way, children interpret that as love. Because you love us, you love each other. And I think I've mentioned here, let me repeat it once again, the best gift, the best love any parent can give to their child is a good relationship.
Wow.
A stable
relationship,
parental relationship. Do you see how we need to be intentional?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and of course I've had some parents say, "So I don't have my own life, I'm just living for the children. And honestly, Rachel, I can answer and say, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
You don't have life. You
This
have
is
life,
what you
but
signed up for.
you understand.
Yes.
You have life, but
Yeah.
now there are certain branches that are feeding off you. Those branches, the moment you uproot that life, so many branches are going to dry off.
It's like the roots of a tree saying, we're doing this for ourselves. Let's remove ourselves from the tree.
From the tree.
It's not possible.
It's not possible. And so, yes, so when we live at a certain level, that's why I tell people every level we go to requires a different us. And so once you have children, now you're no longer living for yourself alone. You see, you have a benefit.
Yeah.
We have responsibility, but it comes with this whole benefit. Now that's very, very important. So parents assuring children and saying, look, because I mentioned that one of the, I think two of the negative emotions they experience, which is shame and guilt, it's like, I'm ashamed I've contributed to this, or I'm ashamed I'm not like other people, but I'm also guilty because maybe parents, depending on what they were, it's my fault. It's so assure them, give that assurance that number one, it's not about you, but number two, that you'll be okay. Number three, that we still love you. Parents disagree, but it has nothing to do with you. We still love you as much as we can. As I said, children will question that love, but it's okay. Give it to them and assure them. Because, honestly, you love them. But your relationship, you fail to manage it.
Yeah. Another thing comes to mind in scenarios like this, where parents weaponize the children against the other parent. And I want you to speak to the dangers of that. They'll say they mean well, I want what's best for my child. Take the children and maybe go against the agreement they had, for joint custody. There's all sorts of scenarios that play out, in families where a parent will start to confide in a child and start to tell them things about the other parent. Your mom is like this or your dad is like that. I want you to speak to the dangers of that, and I think to caution parents about the things that they tell their children about their other parent, however terrible the other parent is.
Yeah. So that is terrible, and it's inevitable. But we are talking about it because we are saying it's not good, and that's why I was saying be mindful that you don't lose more, because you see, when you give children that information, it could be true. It could be true, but the question is, what is going to happen then? Because ultimately they will need to relate with both parents at a certain point. One of the things that parents need to know is that, and I've been saying it to children whenever I'm counseling children, they say, how can daddy do this? How can mommy do this? Honestly. And I say, yes, even an adult makes a mistake. Yeah, we are all human. That's why God gave us a savior. Parents will make mistakes. We are all broken people. But that's why I was telling you, for children, mommy
is the best.
Is the best until they grow. So they idolize us. At a certain point when they grow, they demonize us. But they later on they realize that Bambi, mommy and daddy are also. So we need to nurture grace. So in the midst of this, children need to know that yes, you are giving them information, but don't make it too much. Don't affect because of course parents also need to know that at this point they are struggling, and a struggling person always wants to pull
the other person
down and throw the biggest weapon at them. But you see, that doesn't help. The question is, you may do that, get it off your chest, but what damage is it causing? Now, later on, when parents reconcile in some formal way, because there's co-parenting that we'll need to talk about, but later on, you need to be civil for the sake of the children, for the sake of those relationships. I've seen people say, I'm done with that person and I don't want.
I don't want anything
if
to
you
do with
have
them.
children involved,
You are never done.
you're never done.
Yeah.
You're never done.
Yeah.
At a certain point, you need to deal with this person.
Yeah.
And they'll never have another mother. They'll never have another
That's
dad.
it.
Now, when I mention that, it just reminds me of parents who have failed to handle issues, and whenever they show up in the life of a child, they're saying, "You'll never have it." That's not what I'm talking about. That doesn't help.
Never have another
If you
mother.
play your role, irrespective of how the relationship has broken, then you'll not need to introduce yourself to your children.
True.
But the point we're making here is that try as much as possible not to fight through the children. You called it
Yes,
weaponizing.
weaponizing the children.
Weaponizing the children is dangerous, because later on you're going to be working very hard
to restore that
to
love
restore that,
and affection,
to restore not even to restore, beyond restoring the love, but even healing the children. Because you see, if you damage your children with hate, if you plant hate,
That's
so
what you're going to reap.
the principle is that anything you plant into the child, it will
reap.
sprout.
That's it.
Anything you plant in the child
Bitterness,
will sprout.
resentment.
Bitterness. You plant hate, anger,
Yeah.
bitterness, resentment.
Yeah.
Now, when we have all these things in our lives, we are not just going to direct them towards one person. Okay? So you've planted it for their dad, or just
Their
to
mom,
be
yeah.
used towards
Yes.
them. But they're going to use it against everyone else. Now, the challenge is when they grow, they will even hate you for having planted that.
it, yes.
I've seen children,
Yeah.
and as a parent and a parenting coach, I've told people, please be careful what you plant in the child.
Yeah.
Because there are parents who have actually planted hate,
Can you
maybe
imagine?
towards the relatives of the
Yes,
of the
yes.
husband. It's usually common with us
It's
women.
good. Yes.
Then later on, children realize we needed to relate with these people.
But now it's too late.
But now it's too. Why did you
Why
do
did
that?
you do that?
So I want to really speak to parents. Amidst this chaos, don't do that. Don't cause more damage.
Yeah.
And I keep reminding people, don't lose
Don't
more.
lose more.
Don't lose
And you've
more
already
during
lost.
the
Yeah.
divorce process or
Yeah.
separation process.
Yeah.
No, because the devil is actually
He's after your
he's after you.
generations,
You know
yeah.
that
The
3
generation's
step.
coming after you.
Yeah, he has stolen. He wants to kill, and he wants to destroy.
Yes.
So we need to know that
Yeah.
if you don't catch him at stealing level, he's going to progress to stage
True.
level 2,
True.
which is kill.
Kill.
So, and then if you don't catch him there, he's going to go to
Level
destroy.
3 to destroy.
I love how Baganda say it. They call it kusasanya. Is it kusasanya or
yes,
something?
yes.
So why would you allow the enemy to move up to the last
Yeah,
level?
yeah.
So let's be careful. And Rachel, look, I've seen people divorce later on, they reconcile. Let's not fight like there won't be tomorrow.
That's true.
It's very important that in this whole process we need to know that there's always going to be tomorrow. And why I keep reminding people that emotions have no future.
No,
But that doesn't mean there's no future.
that's true.
Yeah. Emotions have no future.
Yeah.
So I can be so angry, bitter, and what, but the next moment my heart will be reconditioned to be empathetic, to be. So what happens during that time after you have poured all these all these insults
All that
and
garbage in your children. Yeah.
Now, when parents reconcile, this is actually common. When parents later on reconcile in some way or form, children still have the other information.
Absolutely. Because
Yeah.
they believed you when you told them. Yeah.
Now, sometimes we're trying to rework our way back to the
It's like,
children's
what
lives.
exactly is happening here?
Exactly. And children get confused and they hate.
They hate it.
They hate it. They hate it, and they can hate you.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, they
that?
can hate you because they'll say, she's been manipulated, or he's been, what is that? They say, what are you even
What are you
telling us now?
saying?
What are you saying?
Yes.
Now, the challenge is usually when parents have reconciled once again in some way or form, then they don't know what to tell the children.
Yeah, because they've been telling them all sorts of things. And now, how do we go back and say, oh, by the way, I didn't mean what I said about your mom.
That's
I
the
didn't mean
thing.
what I said about your dad.
Yeah.
Now we love each other again. Or maybe we are okay to co-parent, in some shape or form. I think.
Which is, by the way, which is important because
Yes.
one of the things I always tell people is don't put your pain to waste. That pain can actually also be used as a learning point for children.
Or for the children.
For the
as well.
children. Now, unfortunately, it requires so much energy. You have to work against your egos and all that. But it's very important that, for instance, should you have poured dust or rather acid in their hearts and then you reconcile, still you're going to have to pick the courage to come back to them and say,
I messed up.
they messed up.
Yeah.
That parents never go there.
No.
They never go there. But it's very important to do it because you have to consider the damage that you have already caused or has happened. And I mean,
and it takes
you were
humility.
struggling as well. So no one is really passing judgment on this. But it's very, very important to know that there is tomorrow.
There's tomorrow.
There's tomorrow.
Yeah.
And let's try as much as possible not to give
destroy
more,
tomorrow.
to give an extra TV to
to the enemy.
To the enemy.
I actually like that you touched on what could happen if you don't manage the situation well, because, and I think it speaks to what you typically like to say on this show, that we need to project your life even beyond this divorce or separation for your children and for yourself. But since today we are focusing on the children, I think it's important understanding that what you plant in your children, you are going to see when they are maybe 30 years old, 35. And I actually like what you said, that they are not just going to repeat it to you. It's going to be to other people in the workplace,
going to be a lifestyle.
In relationships.
Yes,
That's where we have conversations on childhood trauma, which we are going to have that conversation in a different episode. But I think that, I don't know what it is about emotions that gets us to think now, I'm so angry, I'm so bitter, how could they do this? And so you begin to look for ways to release that emotion, and God forbid it's in your children. Because be sure that what you're planting, you're going to see.
Yes, and that's who they are going to be. Because if you plant hate, you're actually shaping a hateful person.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
If you're planting anger, you're just you're shaping your child to be angry, to be an angry human being. Now, later on, I mean, I don't want to preempt our conversation on childhood trauma and how it affects adults or manifests in adults. But this is exactly what is going to happen. Now, in my counseling, I've seen people. That's why we do psychoanalysis, because you'll see someone beating their wife.
And you wonder, where did
then
they
you
learn
wonder,
this behavior?
I mean, I've had so many cases where I'm saying, it's not you. He's not angry towards you. He's frustrated by the parents who separated.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Because they didn't have an opportunity to beat their dad.
So now.
Or their mom.
Yeah.
When they saw her do some unbecoming things.
Yes.
But now they have someone who they feel they have power over.
A punching bag.
So that's what happens.
Yeah.
So let's be very careful that you don't affect the life of your child because of your relationship.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. So later, I mean, therapy will work, and I'll talk about that. But let's try as much as possible to do preventive, because it's much easier to prevent than to treat.
That's true.
But don't shape hurting generations, angry generations, hateful generations,
because of your experience.
Resentful. There are people that have not been able, adults that cannot relate, get into meaningful relationships because of what they saw their parents, their children who hate marriage because of what they've seen, they've seen, and how they didn't. I mean, they were not helped to reframe the whole situation and be able to connect with it in a more real manner. They just go with anger and all these emotions. Now, I just want to say something about emotions. Emotions are normal. Emotions. Yes. Now, I just want to remind people, we have, if you cut your brain into two, this part is basically an emotional what we call an emotional mind. And it is important because it helps us to interpret situations. For instance, do you know that an emotion of anger is important? It helps us to know when we are mistreated.
Yes.
You see,
So we
the
can
emotion
react.
of regret is very important in our lives. It helps us to know what we could have done better. But you know, it doesn't stop there. So we have the logical mind. This logical mind. This is what we call the executive wing of the brain, which deals with life management. So this one is just default setting,
Yes.
and it's important.
Yeah.
We need to feel. That is important. Those feelings are important. But then in terms of life decisions, then we need to use the logical mind. This is where decision making, problem solving, logical thinking, critical thinking, emotional regulation.
Yes.
So whatever happens here has to be run by here before we can act. Now, unfortunately, when we act based on
what
how we
happens.
feel.
Yes.
So that's the whole thing.
Yes.
So emotions are okay. They are okay, and I want to encourage everyone to know that they have
that they're
emotions,
fine.
especially my brothers who are told they have no emotions. We all have emotions, but
Yeah.
the way we express them and the way we run them by the logical mind to be able to make good
Sound
decisions. This is where maturation is. When we say someone is mature, that means they are able to run their emotions by the logical mind and take a decision. For instance, if you're angry, don't act in anger. That's why scripture talks about it. And God in his wisdom, he didn't say don't get angry. He said when you get angry, do not sin.
Yes.
Yeah, so emotions are okay. They are okay, but they are not meant to be
guide our
applied,
decisions,
especially
yes.
when we are making life-changing
Life-changing.
decisions.
True. I like that. So even as we close, I want you to wrap this up nicely for our audience, to share some tools that parents can employ. I can imagine in a season like this, they are navigating their own emotions. They are navigating even the shame and reproach that comes with separation, the anger, the resentment. So there's the self-regulation, but now you have little ones who are depending on you.
That's right.
As a life coach, as a marriage therapist, what are some tools that you would share with our audience to help them navigate the season?
That's right. Maybe before that, Rich, I'm going to say something about what parents need to look out to see in their children, because sometimes parents are also consumed with their situation. But some of the things I thought I would also mention to parents that is going to be helpful for them to know that children are actually not okay. There are some signs that parents need to look out, be mindful of. Number one, children are likely to act out.
Yes, tantrums.
Yeah, they are likely to throw tantrums because they are expressing anger, right? And they can act out in whichever way, So they will get angry. They will be rude. They will be rebellious because they are making a statement. You see, they are making a statement to the parents. So you're likely to see some behavior issues that probably are not. They were not common among us before. They withdraw. So if a child was very happy and all and bubbly, all of a sudden you see them wither away. That's something parents also need to watch out for, because that could be a sign of depression. And so again, when you're handling the process, you need to be really comprehensive in terms of how you're looking at it. And crying or becoming sad. So some children, especially the younger ones. Now, the older ones also can cry, but they will hide. They'll hide. And that could also be a sign. Where you see a child is crying all the time, they are also getting it off their chest, or they are just sad. They no smile, no nothing. You try to excite them. Sometimes parents run and try to bribe them with ice cream or gifts or whatever it is, new phone. That's not what they need. What they need is a reassurance that things will be
be
okay,
okay.
because their number one need is security. And then of course sometimes you could see behaviors like a child all of a sudden they are peeing on
back on the bed
back
or on
the
themselves.
bed. Yes. So that is unusual. And again, parents need to see like some of those retrogressive behaviors. So that's something to watch out for. School performance, underperformance,
Yes.
that's so common in children. And again, parents, we fall into this temptation to think that because a child is in a good school or Christian school, or
that they'll not experience.
they're going to experience it. There's nothing that is important to a child than their home environment. And especially the parents' relationship. It's so important. That little smile, that's why. So when they don't see this, they're going to go to school. Everything could be there. You could have given them pocket money and everything they need. Paying the school fees, beautiful school. But they're going to spend more time. They're going to direct their emotional energy into imagining what is going to happen. So throughout the school time, they are thinking, will I find home? Will I not find home? I've seen these children. I remember there's children I met in certain schools. I went to preach in a certain school, and when I finished, I got these two girls. They came and cried. So I held them and they cried. And after I asked them, so I would check and say, are you okay to talk about it? What is it? They cried. And after that, they said, we are worried about home, our parents. And just imagine, how can such a child perform in class? And then they're being taught history and I don't know what. They're not going to get it because the brain is focused on the insecurity, something at home. So school performance is usually a very, very big problem. Some of the children could actually, this is where some children are triggered into drugs and other unhealthy substance abuse. And let me just explain something about this. Most of the time parents don't understand it. So they will say, now I'm struggling with your dad or with your mom, now you've added this. What happens is that under such circumstances, a child is trying to look for any pleasure they can get because the situation is so depressing. And so that's actually one of the biggest things when we are supporting children who are into substance abuse. We do that psychoanalysis, and look, you'll find that there was
more often than not,
a problem. More often than not.
Yeah.
You'll find there was a problem at home. So when children get depressed, they get helpless. Now, children are not like adults. When they experience stress, when adults experience stress, we have so many outlets. I'll call Rachel and say, Rachel, I'm going through, can you imagine this and that? But I'll call a pastor, I'll run here and run there. Now, when children are experiencing such, they don't have so many outlets. And so what happens? Stress levels continue to increase, and that's how they easily plunge into extreme sadness and depression. Now, when they get depressed, no one wants to be depressed. No one. So when we get depressed, we become desperate for any little pleasure. And so what do? We look for anything that can give us pleasure. Now, when they get to drugs, what drugs do is that they give you that temporal pleasure, but of course give you long-term effects. But then that little pleasure, someone takes it and then they are excited because now you have fed the pleasure center. So when they experience that little pleasure, they go like, ooh, so anytime I need to be okay, I'll use this. And it could be that, it could be sex, it could be, they get into sexual behavior. Anything that offers like temporal pleasure, they go after it. So most children who get into this, you'll find that they connect to some traumatic experience at home, especially parental breakups.
Oh, wow. Wow. You still haven't answered my question.
Oh, let me answer your question. How
As we end, I was asking you for tools that parents can employ.
Okay, so let me answer your question, Rachel. How did I say it?
Okay, but it was a lovely. I think it was necessary for our audience to know that.
Yes, I thought it was important. So tools. Number one, I encourage parents, please seek help.
Seek help.
Because you cannot pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
The process of divorce and separation,
it's tough. Yeah.
I don't care who is trying to prove to the other that they are not as affected. It's painful.
It is.
It's always, relationships are about attachment.
Yeah.
And this relationship is the most important relationship on earth.
Yeah.
Marriage.
That's true.
It carries the highest emotional voltage.
Mm-hmm.
I can disconnect with you, Rachel. I'll feel sad.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'll feel sad, but it's not going to be like when I disconnect with my husband.
Not at all.
You see? So that's why I keep emphasizing this relationship is key. Mm-hmm. It is so central. We have replaced it with so many other things, but that's not what it is. It is key, it is central. And so when we are separating, we are going to be affected.
Yeah.
We are going to struggle.
Yeah.
We are going to be resentful. We are going to be angry. We are going to be regretting. We are going to be frustrated. There's so much that is going to happen. Now, that's why I encourage people not to treat this breakup as some other casual thing. Because most of the time, parents have nothing to offer to the children because they're struggling. Yeah. They are hiding. Yeah. They are also engaged in certain behaviors because they are struggling. So it's very important to seek help.
Seek help.
Seek help, whether you're a man or a woman.
Yeah.
Both of you need to seek help.
Yeah.
Because you need to navigate this situation
in the best way possible.
So that you don't make more losses.
That's true.
Yeah, so therapy, very important.
Yeah.
Very important. I've had some men especially say, did the therapist get me into this marriage? No, it's okay. But, therapists should support you to get married, support you through marriage, and also support you
at the end of it.
Should this be inevitable that you have to go through it. I really can't overemphasize that. Talk to a professional.
Talk to a professional.
But you could also have some relationships that are important, that are essential,
tap into
that help. Yeah. Unfortunately, when we are going through situations like this, that's when you are able to tell which friend can actually carry your weight.
Yes.
And I was talking to someone the other day who is supporting a couple that is going through a separation. And what they are doing is to position themselves around their friend and say, you know me, I'm your friend. You know that woman. And I was telling him, I said, you know, what this couple needs now is someone who is going to speak truth.
And life.
They need objectivity. Yeah. You don't have to just show that you're this person. If he he was supposed to tell him truth, but now he's also going to the woman and saying, if this woman repents, but she's not the one.
Not, yeah.
So I was telling him, I said, speak truth. Now, the point I'm making here, Rachel, is we can utilize our social support system, but be very careful. Who speaks into your life at this time, because there's lots of brokenness, there's lots of vulnerability, there's lots of so many things happening, and at this point, you need someone who can handle it delicately.
That's true.
Yeah, so that's important. We can utilize structures. And people can be as adult as possible, but they may not be. You need to be discerning, so discerning to see who is going to speak into your life, who can really reconstruct your emotions at this point. Because
and not make it worse.
And not make it worse. Yeah. Of course, prayer. Prayer has multiple benefits. It has a calming effect. Speaking as a psychologist, prayer calms us down. Why? Because we shift responsibility to a higher power.
Yes.
Right? Yes. And so the burden gets less.
Lighter.
But then, of course, speaking spiritually, there's also an answer from the supernatural.
There's a way out.
Yeah, there's a way out. So prayer is important. And I really encourage people. Now, sometimes during such a situation, you can even pray and and answer yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, and of course, people fail to pray. But once again, utilizing support systems that can sustain you during this period, that is so important.
Yeah.
And then, of course, support systems for children. Yeah, for instance, if you're in a high voltage kind of season, you could get your children to go and be at Auntie Rachel's house as you sort things out. If you realize that the home environment is getting really highly toxic, then you could also utilize that. Use friends. This is a point where you can rely on genuine friends. There are few.
There are not many.
There are not many. There are not many, but if you recall, in one of our conversations, I told you about root friends, not the leaves that are going to fly
away. Yes.
But not the branches that could actually also break, but the root trees and root friends. Root friends are very few. But this is a time to depend on your root friends, those that are going to hold you from down, those that can actually speak, tell you truth that you don't want to hear.
Yeah, because this is that kind of season also. You need to hear some truth for yourself.
Yes. Yeah. And speaking of which, you asked about tools. By the way, truth also is important.
Yes.
It's an important tool during this season. Truth, by the way, again, people who have gone through this or who are going through this, you will resonate with what I'm about to say. Truth at this point is so unpopular because people want to deal with emotions. Do you know how I feel? Do you know how I feel? Do you know how I feel? But you see, and so that's how, based on how they feel, that's the temptation to talk to the children. Yes, this is, they have to know. So we become illogical, we become irrational. I was looking for irrational. We become irrational. Now, you're likely to get into lots of irrational things. And so be open. Be open. To feedback, especially truthful feedback from trusted friends, right? And I really want to emphasize that. Please call in a friend that you have given permission to tell you to speak into your life during difficult times.
Yeah.
Because most of the time we want friends to tell us what we want to hear.
And help you bash.
Yes.
Whether it's your wife or your husband.
But this is not that you need truth. Truth is a big tool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if I give, and that's why when we are still okay, I need to have friends. I'll say, please tell me truth. I have one.
Oh, you do?
I have one, and I've empowered her to tell me
tell you truth.
Yeah, okay. So I always tell her, I'm thinking of a damn thing. I know. I always tell her, please tell me truth.
Yes.
And she tells me.
Yeah.
She's able to call me out on certain things, but it's important. So during that delicate time,
it is important.
Very important.
I really hope this has been helpful. For couples that are navigating this very, very unfortunate situation. Nobody, I think, plans their marriage and says, oh, in 5, 6, 7 years, I will be divorced or I will be separated, And especially if you have children, like I said earlier, it just complicates an already complicated situation. And so thank you, Dr. Evers, for sharing these nuggets with us, cautions, the things to avoid, but also the things to look out for in your children, to realize that this thing is affecting them more than you anticipated. They are children, yes, but they are more intelligent and wiser than you think they are letting on. So do let us know in our comments if you need help, you need somebody to talk to. ICFC is willing, available. They have a team of therapists. So it's not just Dr. Evers, there's a whole other team that's ready to offer you advice and just walk this journey with you. And hopefully there is victory at the end. And I think I wanted you to speak in 2 seconds, that there is a life after all of this. And it's possible for your children to thrive. It's possible for you to thrive. It's possible for you to hold your head up high again, even after a
Yes.
scenario like that.
Yeah, well, so in terms of parting shots, I really want to emphasize 2 or 3 things.
Yeah.
Number one, that children know. And so don't live in denial, don't act in denial. Children know. Number 2, that don't lose more.
Yes.
Don't
yes,
lose more,
yes.
because the perpetuator of confusion and all, we have to know that there is a spirit behind everything. Yeah, so I don't want to open up a conversation when I'm giving parting shots, but there is something behind this, and the intention is to steal, kill, and destroy. And so don't lose more. Don't lose more. If your marriage for any reason cannot continue, don't lose more. And then, of course, finally, there is tomorrow.
There's tomorrow.
There's going to be graduation. There's going to be, now when separation is happening and people are angry, then they are not going for visiting children. It's still easy. But as we progress, there's going to be tomorrow. There's so much in the future. There's so much in the future. I've witnessed parents struggle. Later on, they don't know what to say when their children are wedding. They've lost the moral authority to say anything. Honestly, so there is tomorrow. And life is evolving. And so I just want to ask parents, let's consider that it's not here now. There is going to be so much in the future. And so when we are making decisions for today, let's consider that there is so much tomorrow. And tomorrow things might change and you may want to participate.
Take things back and yet you can't.
So don't burn bridges.
Yeah, don't burn bridges. Yeah, some truth bombs for you today on Reality Check. And if you are in that situation, we deeply, deeply empathize. And we hope that this, in a way, has been helpful to you in navigating this season of your life. We will be back next week with another conversation. Until then, stay well, stay healthy, keep it Reality Check. And of course, drop us a comment and please subscribe to this channel. We love you and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.